All right. And so now we're getting into our second breakout group discussion. And so I will attempt to keep the breakout groups the same, so that you should be in the same group with the same people that you were in the first group. If not, my apologies. The breakout group thing is still a somewhat new technology that we're working with. But here we go with the breakout group discussion number 2. And again, I will this time remember to put this question in the chat as well, or all of these questions in the chat as well, with those links from Karen's presentation, so that you all can see the questions and discuss them. So the discussion questions are these. So the bicycles, e-bikes, and car shares can often be used to bring transit closer to you. There's, as an example, you could take an e-bike from your home or residence to the transit stop. These would be housed at apartment complexes, high traffic areas, subdivisions, or at work locations. And would you consider using a shared bike or car program to help you connect with public transit? So to help you connect with, one of these hubs. And what are the barriers to using a bike or car share program to get to these hubs? And how would you eliminate those barriers if you could? So once again, we're going to go into our breakout groups. And again, this time I will place those questions in the chat so we can remember what those questions are. All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got about 30 more seconds for the rest of the groups to join us. It looks like some are still hanging out and chatting. So we'll give everybody a chance to get back. But once again, I'm very much looking forward to hearing everybody's feedback and hearing what they have to say from these breakout groups. I hope this time, by putting the questions in the chat, that kind of helped people remember what the questions were, or if you discussed other things in your groups, that is also okay. This is an open discussion, and these questions really are just there to give us something to branch off of. So welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for continuing on the discussion. As I was saying, these discussion questions, hopefully by putting them in the chat, helped people kind of remember what it was that we were intending to talk about. But again, if your discussion went a little off on a tangent, that's also okay. We're here to listen and converse more than we are to just tell people what to talk about. So I'd like to maybe ask Greg, as one of our community leaders, to maybe clue us in a little bit about what was your group talking about during this discussion, and what sort of thoughts or ideas were brought up. That's mute. Did he leave us? Might have left us. All right. How about Jonathan? Is Jonathan there? Oh, Diane, you're speaking, but you are muted.
Greg is also muted.
Okay, yes. I see that. I asked to unmute him, but it seems he has left the area. Well, Diane, in your group, I believe Jonathan is in your group. Is he there as another one of our community leaders, or did he also head out?
Jonathan was not able to unmute.
Okay.
So
very strange.
Similar to Greg.
All right. Oh, there's Greg. Maybe.
Hey, sorry, Greg. I had to take a break.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. That's just fine. Was just asking for a little bit of feedback from your group discussion. Is there anything that your group brought up that that you would like to share?
No, I like the one of the things that I heard that I thought was interesting was because of congestion and like going to faster public transportation to get people up and down to relieve that traffic. That was a really good idea. One of the guys said that going to Todd Lake, you can never even find parking up there. I thought those are kind of some sensible ideas to kind of relieve some of that foot traffic. I did bring up the issue of social equity with public transportation and our Latino families wanting to own a car and families having a cars and kids wanting to get a car. And that's a challenge for our families because they're not connected to this issue as well as we need to. And I think it's more about a cultural shift that we need to work on.
Great. That's some really, really great insight, Greg, about that being a cultural shift of people being very focused around cars and getting cars and wanting cars.
Yeah. And it's also connected to the safety issue. When you have a community that is marginalized already and to be seen in public, and we're already talking about public safety with bikes and minority not speaking the language, it's going to, all of these are barriers that are going to be compounding on minority communities. And the other one is accessibility. When they're marginalized, most of our community members live in mobile home parks in the far edge reaches of town, so these are the issues that were going to be addressed. I thought were really good about how to get the connectors to get to these folks, to get them. And also being in service industry and being in work jobs where you're going to be working late at night. How do you get home and from work? And, things we want to know.
Yeah. So do you think, particularly for these communities, especially working late at night or something like that, do you think something like a shared bike or car program at things like these mobility hubs where people could get to, would that be something that people would be interested in using?
Again, if we work on the cultural aspect of it, it's this convenience and affordability and safety based on the driver's pedestrian safety, but also safety of health safety because of COVID, I think you would have to address all of that. I don't think it's something you can say, oh, is this going to work for you? No, I think we have to do some cultural shifts and show the benefits to the community, to the environment, and promote it with our youth and our family members so that it's family friendly,
Yeah, that's a great point. That kind of reminds me a little bit of what Jasmine said after the last breakout discussion is education and outreach is a big part of this, of getting people to understand how these things might work, or to make that cultural shift, or to educate people about, hey, this is a way to do this that could be useful or more economically feasible or something like that.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'd like to open it up to anybody else, either from any of the other groups, if there's something that you discussed, or if you would like to sort of bounce off Greg's comments from his group, I'd be happy to open the floor to hear from other groups.
Lori, I wanted to put out something that we heard in our group that I thought was really interesting, and that one of the barriers that people brought up was, how do you rent the bike? So if you don't have a smartphone, or if you don't have a credit card. And Andrea Napoli is one of our members, had worked on a project in Ashland where she arranged for folks who had any kind of public service already signed up for to get a code so that they could get the bikes, and they wound up being the higher users of the bike rental program in the city. I thought that was, and she can probably say that better than me, but I thought that was fascinating to me.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
there are voucher programs too that could be set up.
Voucher programs, Diane, so that you could set something up so that you don't need a smartphone necessarily to be able to access.
Yeah, but then of course you'd need something that was not a networked. In other words, you didn't have to access it by computer. That might be a barrier for some to. And Greg, I'm seeing you nod your head. That might be a barrier that not everyone has the smartphone to access the bike with a credit card.
Yeah.
So setting up some sort of voucher system might be good.
From my experience, there was a way that you could call into a phone number using a regular phone, and then it would text you a code, and that code would unlock the bike for you, so you didn't actually need a smartphone. So there are some ways that certain bike share companies have overcame some of these barriers. And then Greg, I wanted to pipe in on what you're talking about with car share. I actually just saw a really great webinar this morning about e-car share for specifically targeted to farm workers in the Central California Valley, so, specifically Latinos, and the success they had seen with that. And the program was called MioCar. That was really, really interesting. And what you were talking about reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Any other comments or anything else anybody wants to share?
Tim, you had some good things to say, Tim and Sarah in our group about safety. Does either one of you want to comment on that?
Sure, I can jump in. Yeah, I guess I definitely think there's issues with safety. People don't feel safe at the current transit station. So more work could be done to just improve that situation, so to speak. I don't necessarily think I think it's a city issue as much as it's on Cascades East Transit, that there's not enough resources and places for people to get shelter, get their needs met in the community, people who are experiencing homelessness or otherwise. But there's definitely a safety issue with our current transit system, that it just doesn't feel welcoming or a place that people want to go with their kids. And I say that as a parent who lives in the neighborhood, but also because I'm on the neighborhood board and we've gotten feedback from people in the neighborhood. And of course, there's signs all around from the neighbors saying as much. And so, yeah. And I guess I'll just jump in with the other piece of what I was saying is my history using transit was largely with children or with people who are, have developmental disabilities. And so I could see even using a phone could be a barrier for them. And when you're traveling with a child or another individual like that, you're not going to use those mobility options. So having transit within reasonable walking distance is really important. That's, just my 2 bits.
Those are great points. Thank you, Tim. I would love to keep hearing everybody's thoughts, because these are great comments, but just in the interest of time and trying to respect how much time we have and that we don't want to run super late, I think we'll move on to the next thing. But again, feel free to use the chat, leave any comments that maybe you didn't get the chance to meet in this little group in the chat. Or again, we'll put up the information at the end of this webinar as well about how you can submit your comments and ideas to ODOT so that they can, your voice can really be heard by ODOT, and they can use their funds, specifically funds that are based around mobility and equity, can really help with that.